everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tech Talks with nasscom Insights. My name is Ketaki Karnik. I'm Head of Research and Insights at nasscom, and I will be your host for today. In this episode, we'll be discussing next generation partnership models and governance for GCCs and service providers. The traditional transactional relationship between clients and service providers is now outdated. As GCCs evolve into strategic innovation and value hubs, the burning question is, how do these partnerships need to change? That's exactly what we'll explore today. How to forge next generation partnerships built on outcome based models and underpinned by robust governance frameworks that prioritize shared value, digital trust, and resilience in the age of artificial intelligence. On behalf of nasscom Insights, I'm delighted to welcome our first guest, Sumit Sarawgi. Sumit is the India head of Oliver Wyman, a premier management consulting firm. He specializes in bringing high-impact advisory to GCCs as well as tech service providers. Our second guest is Rengarajan Thiruvengadam. Ranga heads operations at the TransUnion GCC in India. He has over 32 years of experience in IT services, having contributed to strategic transformation, operational excellence, and governance at global enterprises. At the TransUnion GCC in India, his role includes defining and implementing enterprise-wide digital platforms, optimizing operational processes, and leading large-scale business transformation programs. Our third guest is Ashok Chawla, Co-Chief Delivery Officer, R Systems, where he drives both delivery excellence and new growth pursuits. With 26 years of experience in software design, development, and large-scale delivery management, he has built and scaled high-performing engineering units into multi-million-dollar P&Ls. Known for his tech-first leadership and entrepreneurial mindset, Ashok has led transformative initiatives in product and platform engineering, IP creation, and outsourced development across global markets, consistently elevating customer experience and service outcomes. With introductions in place, viewers, let's get this session rolling. Ranga, if I can start with you, as the TransUnion GCC evolved from being a cost center to an innovation and value engine, how has this shift fundamentally changed the way you engage with external service providers?
Yeah, thank you, Ketaki, and thank you for other guests, who are part of this webinar today. I'm very excited to be part of this session today here and talk about the next gen partnership model. Very important topic for the moment now, right? In terms of how we are shaping up. And to answer your question, I mean, a cost center to innovation center in TransUnion. If I just think back, how we evolved. See, we all started, in 2018 as a GCC in India, and within a year we become a microcosm of our parent company. We had all functions in, running from GCCs here. And 21 to 23, if I, remember, it was more of like, expansion of our GCCs to, other cities in India, even other countries in, like outside India. We also expanded to South Africa and Costa Rica and through merger and acquisitions. Like, very busy, last 5 years for us. And now we really see the transformation happen from cost center to an innovation center. And in the same timeline, we also, embarked in a large transformative program on the tech side as well as on the business side. So what happened in the last 5 years is we really saw the shift, from the cost center to innovation center, because right now on the leadership side, leadership expansion, or even the product engineering, or even the data and analytics side. So we have full-fledged, resource working from GCC, supporting our global, objectives and our, large transformation initiatives. So that way, we saw that journey happen, and through this, entire journey, the external service providers played a big role, through the traditional engagements model, mostly on outcome-based model, right? Earlier, the focus was primarily on cost optimization, efficiency, and more on the transactional delivery side of it. But today is our approach is more strategic and more collaborative. So what we are looking for is, looking for partners who can innovate with us, complement our capabilities and bring domain expertise. That's kind of shift that we are seeing, and we seek more of a joint, ownership of outcomes, whether that's accelerating product development or driving, data-driven insights, or even enhancing customer experience. Right, we are looking for more of a joint ownership on the outcomes. So we are now evaluating service providers not only on the cost but also on their ability to deliver agility and even the scalability, and not only on that, also on the innovation side as well. So that's how I see it, Ketaki, for how we are approaching in the coming days.
Nice, Rengarajan. So really shifting from capacity buying to capability and outcome ownership, and in a sense geographic expansion as well. That's really very powerful redefinition of what partnerships means indeed.
Right.
For a view from the other side of the table, the service provider perspective, Ashok, let me turn to you. As GCCs mature and take on more complex and mission critical work, what defines a next generation partnership? What are the key characteristics and commercial models beyond the traditional staff augmentation or volume based pricing?
Absolutely. As Raka mentioned, the overall outcomes which are required, I think, right, for the GCC to become more like a value creation, right? And at the end of the day, it's not just about the people, right? I think what value, what innovation you're delivering from a center is very, very important. And products are getting created here which are taken to the market, I think, right? So not only just doing the sustenance work, I think it has shifted now because you have a lot of products also getting sold in this market, right? APAC, India, and Europe, I think, is becoming a good market night for a lot of products which were developed earlier primarily for US market, and now because you're closer to the customer, you are innovating new products as well along with them, right? So now, if using partners have been the strategy always for the product firms, right? It's not new, right? Earlier, people used to talk about 70% teams from your own and 30% always should come from vendors, right? I think that model is still getting followed. Now, since the nature of work is changing, right? You are not just doing the operational work, execution work, you're also doing thinking and then building these products. Same is expected from the vendors as well, right? Which they come in. I think they should bring in not only the capabilities, but this mindset of developing next generation products or contributing to the ideas, looking at the market, right? So in those skills also, right, I think you may not just have engineering teams, you may also have product owners, people who can actually look at the business, customer success teams, right? These are all changing nature of the work, which is becoming part of the so in a way, I think we are I would say, I think we always call it like the co-pilot model, where you are actually the main pilot is actually driving, which is the product teams or GCC team, but we are actually working along with them and be part of the entire journey, right? And hand in hand, I think, we are going along with them, right? Ratio might change from 70-30, somewhere 50-50, I think it depends, I think, right? But it's a co-pilot, I would say, I think, is a model which we are working on.
So really, really important points there, Ashok. I think the movement from effort-based to a co-pilot model, I think really raises the bar in terms of how these new partnerships should work. Sumit, following on from that, in the new ecosystem where GCCs and service providers are simultaneously competitors and collaborators, what are the most critical organizational and cultural changes that clients must make to successfully manage these hybrid multi-sourcing models?
Hi, Ketaki, and very happy to be on this webinar with Ashok and Renga and you. What you just laid out is a very important question. I think let me take it one by one, right? From an organizational perspective, the teams on both sides have to be organized in a harmonious way along with the parent company. Now, very often we find that either of the teams are not organized around business capabilities and they're organized around technical tasks. So that's one thing that will benefit this collaboration as teams get homogeneously organized across the GCCs and service providers around business capabilities, because most of the parent organizations are now around business units or product lines or business capabilities. We have to organize ourselves in the same way. And many of the GCCs have already undergone that transition. But we feel that the service providers would also have to meet up, and as they're working with the GCCs, be organized in that way. On the cultural side, and I think I can't underscore the importance of cultural alignment, because it's almost as decisive as the technical alignment, right? Things like shared rituals, joint onboarding, rewards and recognitions, mirrored practices across GCCs and service providers, or frequent in-person collaboration are the kind of cultural ceremonies or factors that could be very important for coming together. In fact, a lot of the next generation GCCs have to layer in the career roadmaps of their people along with their providers or third parties providers through an optimized talent pyramids. It doesn't matter where the talent is, as long as you're working in that combination of GCCs and service providers. You need to have a thought through career pyramid, a retention pyramid, as well as a talent engine that gets attracted through the culture. So those are some of the factors that come to my mind.
So, but I really like the way you framed it, and you've taken it away from just a sourcing challenge to a really organizational and cultural aspects, which are very important. What, in your opinion, are the two non-negotiable elements that must be embedded in a modern governance framework to ensure success and mitigate risk in a multi-provider, multi-country GCC ecosystem?
I think there are many, but if I was to prioritize two, the first one, which is really important, is to position this as a joint business steering versus vendor management. And it's really important in the way the GCCs work with the third party providers. It has to go beyond just vendor management, and we find that in today's world, a lot of the GCCs, because of the how the evolution had happened, do look at this as, hey, I have a vendor. No, we have a partner, and we need to have a joint steering of the programs through that. And I think second is something that I think Ashok had started in episode 1, which was to say, okay, we are a co-pilot. I would take it a step further to say, how can we then have a governance model where the gain share is actually tied to your business impact? And that is the true measure of a tight governance that has a shared impact together. And can we evolve commercial models between the GCCs and third parties where the gain share models are actually tied to business impact, and a lot more of it rather than the customary small portion that is typically reserved for gain share? Those would be the two on my mind.
Yes, I love the way you said, it's about less control and more trust at scale in a way. Ranga, turning to you, in a world of increasing data regulation and geopolitical risk, how do you balance operational resilience, that's location strategy, business continuity, and such like, with the need for cost efficiency and innovation in your external partnerships?
Oh, interesting. See, when we say about regulations or compliance to regulations, right, it definitely requires accountability and, of course, risk mitigation and being transparency, right? So if you see in GCC in India, we are taking more on strategic role in global transformation now. And obviously, as you rightly asked in the questions, the finding a balance between bold innovation and operational excellence is required, right? And what I see, at least as a recurring concern, is now there is more precise concentration of GCCs in India. But some people think that's a risk. But actually, leading centers like some of us here are mostly focused on how we can do structured assessments and collaborative workshops to align with our global, and local perspective. So that is one way we are looking at how we can align. And then, of course, by providing a multi-dimensional metrics, which is also kind of helping us to identify the exposure areas and also, assess the vulnerabilities and report comprehensively to global or to the parent organization, right? And then, of course, the opportunity visibility, right? So to mainly once you embed the governance into the innovation frameworks with a clear role definitions, right? Then you will have robust internal controls in place. Basically, what I'm trying to say is by aligning the bold ideas with a disciplined execution, and innovation and compliance can coexist. So that's how I see it, and that will enable GCCs, and lead transformation more responsibly and sustainably. Is the way I see it. How we expand Katki.
Ranga, this balance between resilience and innovation is something that many GCC leaders struggle with, and your response just made it a lot more tangible for them. Thank you. But Ashok, staying on the theme of innovation, from a service provider's lens, what do you see as the biggest governance roadblocks or contractual inflexibilities that prevent you from driving faster innovation or adopting next-gen models like co-innovation?
Interesting. And let me cover the second part first, which is contractual, I think, right? See, most of the procurement, I think you see, I think, right? The kind of contracts they are used to, either it's a time and material or maybe fixed cost, I think, right? That's a kind of a universal model. They have been continuing on this. And now suddenly you bring in a kind of a gain sharing or any other outcome-based pricing. I think it takes a lot of cycles for them to really understand this, right? And for a product, the time to market is very, very important. And if I'm wasting my 3 months just making procurement understand what it really looks like, I think, the entire plot is lost, I think, right? So what's happening is, because of this contractual inflexibilities, a lot of innovation products or innovation kind of things are still garbed as either time and material, because you have a lot of uncertainties how you go along the way, I think, right? So the contractual model has not evolved, I think. That's where the industry need to really understand, I think, right? And especially now you take it to the next agentic level, I think, right? Now when I actually bringing in a service, I may not be just bringing in the people, right? There are going to be bots which are developed by me, which will be coming in and helping in terms of assisting, right? How do you price it in, right? I think that's a very, very different game. And I don't think so current procurement teams are geared up for this kind of innovation, I think, right? Engineering teams, though, they really understand, but especially for large procurement organization, right, it becomes very, very difficult to adopt these kind of models. So that's on the contractual side. Governance, again, I think, see, whether we like it or not, I think there are going to be teams which are still going to be do sustenance, I think, and you are having very well evolved models for doing governance, I think, right? And now suddenly when you go into this outcome-based or altogether new capability building models, I think, right, along with the service provider, traditionally, I think the same kind of rhythm is expected. Okay, you will be doing monthly business review, you'll be doing quarter business review. I think if you follow the same model, I don't think so you'll be able to deliver the innovation, I think, right? Because if you are going into these areas, it's more like a startup culture, right, where things change almost every day. You have to pivot based on the decision, and this has to be joint. As I said, it's a co-pilot, I think, right? So we are taking a joint decisions. So there, a general governance will not work. I think it's only going to be, like a working like as you have skin in the game, and you're working more like an entrepreneur, I think, right? So as an entrepreneur, what you do on the shop floor or a ground floor, same kind of a governance is needed to govern these programs as well, I think, right? So it's altogether new government, all the guys who are coming with a more like a startup mindset and then working together, I think, right? That's the way it has to operate.
That's a very candid response, thank you. Gentlemen, before we close, just quick reactions from each of you. Looking ahead 3 to 5 years, how do you see governance models evolving? You talked a little bit about that, Ashok, but how, would love to have everyone else's views as well. How do you see it evolving from a contractual compliance approach to prioritizing ecosystem-wide shared accountability and digital trust? And maybe Ranga, we could start with you.
So, I mean, if you see the Indies, I think just to play back what we discussed in the first few minutes, right? India's GCC model is undergoing a strategic transformation in the next 5 years, right? So not just as a cost arbitrage center, but we are moving into more of an enterprise leadership, scale, right? And no longer, GCs are going to be just efficiency driven support centers. Instead, they are now going to do an end-to-end, product and platform owners, more of an integral part of the enterprise transformation, as I mentioned in my earlier, the journey that we made in TransUnion, right? So, and I see in TransUnion, and I believe it would be the same for many other leading centers also. And if you think of like technology is always the center of the evolution, right? But now in the coming years, it will be more AI and Gen AI stuff, not as an enablers, but as more as a drivers of business strategy and innovation, right? And it is very promising. And the outlook that these technologies, when it gets embedded into the core function, sure they will accelerate the decision making, enhance the customer experiences, and definitely enable secure and scalable operations as well on the operations world as well, right? I'm talking from my our own experience and how our model is evolving, right? And we are seeing leadership maturity is likely to rise definitely, and with more Indian leaders taking global transformational roles. That is we are already seeing happening. And now this multi-location model that I talked about, not only helping the balance cost, but also allow GCC to access diverse talent. So we are not looking at beyond our local market, right? And in case of India, it also could be expanding to tier 2, tier 3 cities. That is massively happening in the next 5 years. I think we'll see more and more such centers expanding to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And on the operating model side, there will be more purpose driven outcomes. That could be a big shift that we will see, and that will include the financial inclusions and fraud prevention. Those are like more concentrated topics these days. So that will also we'll see coming more frequently happening in the coming years. And if I just summarize, we at TransUnion, we are very poised to help the next phase of enterprise transformation. So we are actually deepening our investments in AI to basically drive innovation in the industry practices, so not just for productivity, but more at the industry practices level. We are deepening our investment in AI, and on the data production is very important for us. So we are trying to put it in all layers so that innovation is to ensure trust and compliance. So that's kind of approach that we are seeing, more of continuous growth on the analytics side and the product development side, also on the research side. So and all together can happen only by expanding the talent upskilling, right? So talent upskilling is a key, and not only upskilling, but is also enable the internal mobility also. So that way we get our talent-led innovation within the organization. So I see there will be more focus on these are the areas as we step into the next 5 years of AI world, or AI enabled GCCs.
Ashok, your thoughts?
I think yes, Ranga has covered most of the stuff. I think, right. What I see is, I think in this in next 5 years, you will see roughly 80% of the entire decisions, right? Which area to invest, which products to build, which project you have to sunset, how do you collaborate, what kind of partnership. I think 80% of decisions are going to be taken into GCCs. I think that's what my view is. I think, right, it's going to be completely shifted. I think, right. I think what has happened in the past, this is going to become a nerve center, and once you have a nerve center, I think you need to have all those things, right. It's not just no more chasing a certain target. I think here you have to define the targets for you. I think, right. So that is going to be change.
I think the question was around how will the governance models change in the next 3 to 5 years, looking at shared accountabilities and digital trust. And I think between the two episodes, the panelists have actually covered a lot of the points. Let me just summarize from my perspective how I think about this. I don't think about this as only governance, because if this partnership has to succeed, it has to start right at the point at which the vision for the partnership or the operating model is being designed. I believe there are multitude of models that are available today. What is required is for the GCCs and the service providers to actually have a shared vision for what they are going to achieve. Because the more and more we talk about decisions being taken by one party alone, we are not moving in the direction where it's a joint outcome. And I agree with the discussions earlier that it'll take some time, it is a big change, etc. But that's what I believe needs to happen at the first point, right? So shared vision, then translating into shared accountabilities. and what roles each party will play in that. Shared accountabilities also then mean that you have the leadership that is present within the GCCs and third parties to take those decisions. Because if you're accountable for the outcome, then you have to be having the power to take the decisions, as well. And third pillar to me is the whole sort of governance model which we spoke about, where you're moving away from a vendor like governance model to a more joint steering committee kind of a model. And the fourth pillar to me is the incentive model, which we spoke about earlier as well, because at the end of the day, organizations work towards what they are measured on and what they get paid on. And so, unless that changes, so that circle, I hope in the next 3 to 5 years can be completed, right from the operating model to the accountability model to the governance model to the incentive model. That could be the vision that we could set for ourselves.
With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this episode of Tech Talks with NASSCOM Insights. Thank you once again, Sumit, Ashok, and Ranga, for sharing your perspectives and insights. And viewers, we hope you enjoyed this discussion on next generation partnership models and governance. Stay tuned for more insightful conversations on the Indian tech industry on the NASSCOM Insights YouTube channel. Do like, share, and subscribe. Till then, it's goodbye from all of us here at NASSCOM Insights.